Hello, welcome to HIBERT Performance. How do we turn the sweat? The third time. That's why the video is also late. Here I present to you the operation of the Autotuner tool and show a few small things to watch out for. Tips and tricks that I have learned over time, I would say. So let's get started. Down here, you have your recently selected vehicles. It says here everything is self-explanatory. I'll just say it again. Yes, alright. Up here you have your vehicle selection. You probably won't have to manage slave files. Here you have the vehicle selection. Here you can choose which vehicle you want to read out. We will focus here only on passenger cars. Here you have the vehicle selection of vehicles that you can read as ECU, meaning as engine control unit. But here you can also select TCU. Then we have the vehicles available, that we can only read with the transmission, listing all the transmission control units here. So we'll stick with ECU for now up here. On the right you also have a selection regarding what you want. For example, only read OBD or omit OBD, or if you don't want vehicles, only read BD, then you can do it that way. And if you want to read Austria diesel or gasoline, we'll leave the OBD in for now. Up here you have a search bar where you can search for which control unit, in case you can't find the listed control unit. You can search for it here, then you might find it easier, sometimes not easier. Depending on how many vehicles are listed, you can, then we go through the vehicle selection. We'll just do it using a BMW as an example. We'll start with the E46, just to demonstrate something. So we have a vehicle selection here, again, too quickly. You can select all vehicles here, everything is listed. It's actually all self-explanatory, but we'll just do it with the EDC16C1. You have all the engine control units listed here at the top, the standard power, then the engine type, what kind of control unit this is, and these are the protocols. Then you can choose between bench opt, DTC. This means error codes, but you can only read them from the engine control units, and then there are data logs. This means logging drives. When you drive, you can make recordings with it, and you can monitor parameters like boost pressure, torque, maps, rail pressure, and so on. With one vehicle you have more monitoring, with another less. It always depends a bit on what the car provides. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. But you have to say that these two things are a gadget or feature that the other tools don't have. Accordingly, you can live with it. It doesn't work 100% because we actually buy the tool for something else. We start with OBD. The OBD. Read the interface. Here it shows whether it's running or not. Identify here. This is done here to check if you have really selected the correct engine control unit. And then it shows here, yes you have. Then here, I don't want to pay here like this. The ID, hardware number, software number, and so on are listed there. And then down here, it usually shows something red. Then you have selected something wrong, or ECU detected is EDC16C1 in this case, or EDC16CP35. Then you need to go back and look for the EWC16CP35. We have a C35 here, but that's roughly how it would be. If you want to read a control unit, then we have two reading options here. One's normal reading, one's virtual reading. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and certain control units you can only read normally, and certain control units you can only read virtually. Normal reading means something like we actually read out the car. So it takes about a minute, a few minutes, 5-6 minutes. Everything has its certain advantages and disadvantages. Normal reading has its advantage. If there is a tuning on the control unit, then you have also read that out. That means you can't do tuning on top of tuning, which can happen with virtual reading virtually. Normal reading has its disadvantages. It is slow. It can lead to interruptions during reading if you somehow jiggle the cable or for whatever reason. You have that less with virtual reading. If we now take a newer control unit, for example, if we select an EDC17 here with identity, let's take an EDC17 OBD. There we have there we have virtual reading. With most EDC17 control units, you will only be able to read virtually, at least with Hitzer, VAG and BMW. This has the advantage that it is faster, but also the disadvantage that if the car has a tuning, you won't read the tuning because this file is simply downloaded from the server. Based on the software number and hardware number, the tool knows which data version is on it, and the data version that is currently on the car is read virtually from the server. You have to decide for yourself how you read the vehicle. The problem with virtual reading is what I see, for example, if there is a tuning on it and it is bad, or in general there is a tuning on it and you simply don't notice it while driving, and you do a separate tuning and apply it, it may be that the customer doesn't feel any performance gain. Then you have the issue of explaining to the customer that you did a tuning on top of the existing tuning, and somehow it has to be paid for also. And yes, to avoid this mistake, you could also do performance measurements beforehand, then do the tuning, and then you don't have the problem of having to explain to the customer why the vehicle isn't producing more power or maybe even less. If you don't want to push the reserves as hard as the previous tuner did, then something this can happen. If you have a car and you want to read it and the current data status of the vehicle, but you can only read it virtually, there's already a tuning applied, the customer has told you, then you can read in bench, bench is normal reading, then you have to go into the instructions. Remove the engine control unit. In most cases it is indicated here where the engine control unit is located. You need to remove it once. Then you can check what necessary accessories you need. Then you take an engine control unit and connect it with the cables, each one as specified. In the program, connect everything, then connect the COM 12 volt of supply to the power supply, and then you press identify. If you have connected everything correctly and the solution is correct, meaning the reading protocol, then it will show here something different than now. It is definitely not red, and it will also say detected, if I'm not mistaken. Then you can read it. You then read out the data status and select the storage location. I believe it already asks exactly where you want to save it. And then you press save, and then you either send this file to your trusted tuner or modify it yourself. Then play the image, then you can select the file again. And then you can upload the file again. If you need to book a vehicle, then you select it here in the protocol. This is a weather protocol. Weather protocol means it might not work and could lead to errors. And if you ever want to read a device in the boot, then you select it, you have the option here, then you load it onto the boot and check the instructions for what you need. Here, the ECU location is also displayed. Then you will find it just like in bench. The connections here are as specified. Then you need to connect to the control unit here. You do that exactly there. For that you need the film. Autotuner as a 10 supplier with it. Then you can place it exactly where you want to connect, and then you just need to focus on the pin. There are steps that make it more complicated to boot, and there are steps will ultimately be easier to book. You then need to connect it here in this orange one. Well, you just need to go with the needle on this pin here. And then you proceed to identify, like in bench, The numbers will be displayed. Red, edit file, write, done. If the file fits, done. In general, that's basically it. You can find the installation for Auto on the Auto Room page as well as on the USB stick in the supplied case. I hope I haven't forgotten to explain anything, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions regarding this, feel free to write them in the comments. If you have any specific video requests, then feel free to write them in the comments as well. On Tech Tuesday next week, we would like to introduce you to the Flex tool. We will also delve into the Flex tool. Probably then, in the following week, we will also introduce the operation of the Flex tool. Oh, I think that's it. That's all.